What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of BreBre Talks MMA. Oh my gosh, I should not have stayed up last night watching the press conference. I stayed up till like 2 a.m. Because I was just so hyped. Like, how do you not get hyped after that? UFC 290 is one of the best cards I've seen this entire year. So I am drinking some Jocko Fuel right now, which, if you haven't already, check out Jocko Fuel. I'm partnered with them. So if you support Jocko Fuel, if you go on their website and use my code BreBre on any of their products, then you will get 10% off, and it will help me and help the podcast. So I appreciate you. But yeah, that's what I'm sipping on right now, some Jocko Fuel, because I'm tired, okay? I'm tired. I should not have stayed up so late. I stayed up till like 2 a.m. watching press conferences. I just, like one of those cards where it's like you almost just like don't want it to be over, and you're just like trying to like keep that feeling energy going, and you're just like watching stuff. Sometimes I'll even like play UFC 4 after the fights if I'm like so hyped like I can't go to bed, because I don't know, I'm weird though. I'm like a fight nerd. So I got really excited, but oh my gosh, it was such a good night of fights. And it wasn't just the fights that were good, it was just like the whole thing. Like, there were tons of celebrities there. The energy was insane. It was in Vegas, but it wasn't at the stupid Apex. It was actually like an event, a pay-per-view. So that was cool. And yeah, it was just amazing. I really want to go to a UFC pay-per-view in Vegas at some point in the near future, because I just feel like that has to be one of the coolest experiences as a fight fan. And going to International Fight Week, like I wasn't able to figure out a way to make that happen this year, unfortunately. But I think I'm going to start planning now to make that happen next year, because I'm like, man, that would have been so cool to have been there. And just feel the energy and see Robbie Lawler's last fight. Like, oh my God. So let's get into it. I'm not going to waste any time. And by the way, this entire episode is all going to be UFC 290. I don't even know what other fights were going on, to be honest, because this is all I was really focused on. This is such a big event, such a big pay-per-view, that I really didn't want to be distracted from anything else. So I really just focused 100% of my energy on this. And I wanted to be able to cover these fights and break them down and just be, on high alert for anything that's going on in any of these divisions that we saw last night and future matchups. So I kind of just focused on UFC 290. I think there was maybe Bellator or something going on. I don't think there was any BKFC or PFL. So not that I know of. If there was, I had no idea. And I'm on Instagram all the time, so if there was, I would have seen it. But yeah, I didn't know of any other fights really that were going on that I wanted to pay attention to. So we're all about UFC 290 today. And honestly, even if there was other fights going on, I don't think they would have even been able to come close to this one. It's just, that was such a huge event, and it just kind of reminds you like why the UFC is the UFC. And I'm a big fan of other promotions too. I'm a big fan of PFL, and I'm a big fan of bare knuckle, as you guys know if you've watched my stuff before. But yeah, UFC is still on top, and UFC, if they can keep putting on pay-per-views like this, then yeah, it's going to be really hard for any other promotion to really get to their level. But we'll see. But let's go ahead and start with the early prelims. So there were some really good fights on the prelims. It was there were a lot of like quick finishes and just really interesting fights. So we'll start with the prelims. But Kamala Kirk versus Esteban Ribovic, that was a decision win for Ribovic. And what I remember from this fight was Kirk won the first round, in my opinion, and I thought he was going to win this fight. I thought he was going to use his wrestling and just completely ragdoll Ribovic, honestly. And Ribovic was the favorite in this fight, so But I was just thinking like, okay, he's not going to be able to wrestle with Kirk. But then the last 2 rounds, he pretty much took over. So he ended up getting the win. But yeah, but the first round, Kirk had a really good first round. But yeah, ultimately, Rubovic just kind of took over and dominated the rest of the fight. And then after that was Jesus Aguilar versus Shannon Ross. So this was insane. So Jesus Aguilar finished Shannon Ross in 17 seconds, knocked him out. And I think it was the second fastest, maybe it was the first fastest. No, it was the second fastest knockout in flyweight history. So, and that's something you really don't see often at flyweight because it's a lighter weight class. They don't have as much punching power. It's not like heavyweight or light heavyweight where they can knock you out with one punch. Flyweight, it's usually a little bit more rare. That's why we see so much great fights at those lower weight classes because it's so hard for them to put each other away. But every once in a while you see something like that, and Jesus Aguilar made a huge statement with that one. That was incredible. So I was thinking that would kind of like set the stage for the Mexican fighters, the rest of the card. I was like, oh yeah, we got our first win for Mexico. And then, yeah, we didn't really have any more. I don't think any other Mexican fighters won after that, unfortunately. So that was kind of sad, but I thought he was like starting a trend, but I don't know. And then after that was Cameron Simon, who's another South African fighter, which we saw Duplessis in the Robert Whittaker fight. He's a South African fighter as well. So it's kind of cool to see some of these fighters coming out of South Africa. There's not a ton of them in the UFC, but I guess we'll see more as they continue to come up. But that was a TKO for Simon. What I noticed about him is that he was doing a really good job at reversing a lot of the grappling. And his opponent was Terrence Mitchell. I don't know if I said that earlier, but yeah, he was fighting Terrence Mitchell. Simon was a huge favorite in this fight, so I was kind of expecting him to win, but it was still good to see what he was able to do on the ground with, like I said, reversing those grappling exchanges, getting on top, and, you know, just he did a really good job at handling him on the ground and on the feet. But I can't remember if it was him or if it was Terrence. I think it might have been Simon that had a guillotine attempt, or maybe it was Mitchell. I can't remember. Man, there's so many good fights. I can't even remember what happened, but somebody attempted a guillotine at one point, but then Simon ultimately got the TKO. And I'm excited to see what he does next. I'm excited to see them step up his competition a little bit. Obviously, you don't want to rush it too fast. With him being, let me see what actually is his experience in MMA. I'm not really super familiar with his background. But he is undefeated. So he's undefeated. And he's got 6 knockouts. So that's pretty impressive. He's 9-0. He's been in the UFC for a little over a year, it looks like. Or actually, not even. Because a year ago, that was the Contender Series. So not technically UFC, but basically UFC. And then he had his UFC debut December of 2022. So really, he's only been in the UFC for like 7 months, 8 months. So far so good. So far he's doing a great job. It'll be interesting to see how things go for him. It really will be. I don't know what to expect. I don't know if he's like one of these hype trains or whatever that we all get excited about and then they lose and you're like, dang it. Hopefully that's not the case with him. Hopefully he keeps winning, but I'm excited. I'm excited to see some of these new fighters pop up and just see where their career goes. But yeah, that was a great win for him. And that was in the first round too. So we always like to see that. And then Vitor Petrino versus Marcin Prachnio. That was a submission win for Petrino in the third round. I was impressed with Petrino. He's got great grappling. He's got good takedowns. The only thing I was a little concerned about was just he really didn't move his head at all. So with him being at light heavyweight, that kind of scares me because I know there's a lot of heavy hitters in that division. So I worry about that a little bit with him going up against like a really good striker. I could see him having problems, just with the head movement, but his grappling is incredible. So if he can get the fight to the ground, I think he's good. But yeah, I was impressed with him overall. And I was impressed with Prachnio too. I mean, he had some good moments in that fight, but ultimately Petrino just pretty much overwhelmed him. So, yeah, that was a good fight. And then we had another light heavyweight fight after that, Alonzo Menafield versus Jimmy Crute. I was actually expecting Jimmy Crute to win that fight. Honestly, he ended up getting submitted in the second round by Alonzo Menafield. And then he took off his gloves after the fight. I'm not sure what that was all about. I'm not sure if he was like hinting at a retirement, which would be really bizarre because he's like 27. So if he were to retire, I feel like there would have to be like some underlying reason behind it, like maybe an illness or maybe some personal thing he's dealing with, or I don't know. But it just seems odd to see somebody retire that young. So I don't know if it was a retirement necessarily, or if he was just, frustrated. Sometimes fighters get emotional, angry, whatever, after they lose a fight. But I was really impressed with Menafield in that fight. I mean, like I said, I wasn't expecting that from him. And I definitely wasn't expecting a submission. If he won, I was expecting it to be like a knockout or a decision. Wasn't expecting a submission from him. So, yeah. And it was a guillotine actually from side control, I believe, is how he submitted him. So that was pretty cool. But, yeah, good fight. Hopefully we see Jimmy Crute come back. I mean, he's a great fighter. I love watching him fight. Always fun to watch. So we'll see. And then the women's strawweight fight. This was actually a performance of the night from Denise Gomes. So she ended up knocking out Yasmin Yargui. Hopefully I said that right. And it was pretty quick. It was one of the faster knockouts I've seen in a while. I think it was, 20 seconds. 20-second knockout. So, yeah, that's terrifying. I actually thought Yasmin was going to win that one. Again, I was hoping for the Mexican fighters this time, Besides Yair, I thought all the Mexican fighters were going to win. I honestly did. And it just, I was not expecting, I was thinking maybe Gomes could beat her, but I wasn't expecting it to be a quick knockout like that. Like, that was not at all what I was expecting. So she definitely earned that performance of the night bonus. I mean, and you don't really see knockouts that often at strawweight, just like I was talking about with Aguilar, that 17-second knockout at flyweight. I mean, this is at strawweight. These girls are 115 pounds. So it's like, you just don't see that often. So when you do, you're kind of like, oh, yeah, she might be kind of scary. Like, we might need to watch out for Denise Gomes because that was terrifying. But yeah, that was a good fight. And then let's see what was after that one. That was Tatsuro Taira was after that versus Edgar Chairez, and that was Tatsuro's debut. I was really, really excited about this because he's an undefeated fighter from Japan. Was really curious to see how he was going to do in the UFC. And it looked like he was just a way better grappler. Way better grappler. One thing I didn't love about this fight was Chairez. He grabbed the cage with his toes several times. I don't know. I can't remember who reffed that fight. I don't know if it was Herb Dean. But whoever the ref was, I don't know. I mean, I felt like they could have done more about that because it was pretty bad. It was probably one of the worst I've seen with somebody putting their toes in the cage. And I just realized Chairez is Mexican. That was the other Mexican fighter I thought was going to lose because I've heard so much about Tatsuro Taira and his grappling and just how good he is. So I was like, yeah, I think this guy's going to win. But you never know. I mean, somebody's debut, you really never know what's going to happen. And But he impressed me. He impressed me with his grappling. I think it'll be interesting to see how he does in the next fight. It'll be interesting just to see kind of his striking evolve more. I think his grappling is really impressive. But it'll be interesting to see how he evolves into a more complete fighter. But the main event of the prelims, I call it the main event of the prelims because I think it really felt like a main event for like the free fights or whatever you want to call it. But Robbie Lawler versus Nico Price. Robbie Lawler knocked him out in the first round in 38 seconds. You couldn't have asked for a more perfect retirement fight. And Robbie Lawler's retirement, I guess his send-off, whatever you want to call it, that was incredible. Like, I wasn't really expecting that. I was expecting them to do something special for Robbie, but that was so cool. Like, they were showing like old footage of his fights, and he got really emotional, which is, you never see Robbie like that. Like, you really never see him get emotional. He's kind of like very stoic, and he's kind of known for that. But yeah, he got emotional, and I think anybody would have, because his last fight in the UFC, he ended up winning via knockout in the first round. It was perfect. It was seriously perfect. I'm so happy for Robbie Lawler. I noticed in the press conference they were kind of instigating like a Conor thing. I don't know. I thought that was a little silly. I'm like, dude, he just retired. Like, let the man breathe for a second. Let him retire. I don't think he really wants to talk about Conor McGregor right now. I think he wants to just enjoy the moment and reflect on his career. And yeah, I think that Conor loves to talk. We all know that. I don't think it's hard to take anything he says seriously at this point. So it's just kind of like, yeah, why even bring it up? And I've seen like people posting the clip of Robbie talking about Conor on social media. It's like, dude, just let him retire. Like, just let him chill, like, for a second. Yeah, is there a chance he might come back? Maybe for a Conor fight. If it's a big money fight, maybe. Okay, I could see a possibility, but he's 41 years old, guys. I think the odds are pretty low. I think the odds are pretty low of Robbie coming back, but the only way he would come back is it would have to be a huge paycheck. It would have to be huge. So that's what I think about that. I do think he might go to bare knuckle. That would be interesting. I'd actually rather see him fight Conor in bare knuckle than in the UFC, I think. I think that would be more fun. But I don't know. We'll see. I do think he will possibly go to bare knuckle at some point. I do think that's a huge possibility for him. Unless he has something else planned. I don't think it's going to be right away. I don't think it's going to be... There's not going to be any announcement of anything anytime soon. He just retired. Like, let him chill. But I do think bare knuckle is a possibility for him. I think he would do fantastic in bare knuckle. And I think it'd be fun to see him against somebody like Mike Perry. But I don't know. We'll see. But even if he retires, it's like he's had such a impressive career. Like, let's take a moment and appreciate Robbie Lawler's career, and let's just read off some of the names of the guys that he has fought, because he has fought literally freaking everyone, and I just think he deserves so much respect. And let's see when, because his debut I think was in 2002. I believe, in the UFC at least, because he was in Strikeforce. I can't remember if he was in Strikeforce before the UFC or if it was at a different time, but I'm about to look it up right now. Yeah, he was in Strikeforce before the UFC. Okay. So let's take a look at some of his wins. Or actually, not his wins, just everybody he's fought. Because even when he doesn't win, he's one of those fighters that's still incredibly fun to watch. Okay, Josh Koscheck. Rory McDonald. Of course, that was like one of the most legendary fights of all time. Johnny Hendricks, Jake Ellenberger, Matt Brown, Johnny Hendricks again, Roy McDonald again, Carlos Condit, Tyron Woodley, Don Cerrone, Rafael Dos Anjos, Ben Askren, Colby Covington, Neil Magny, Nick Diaz, Brian Barberina, Nico Price. Like, and then even before the UFC, Jacare Souza, Tim Kennedy. He fought Melvin Manhoff. He fought Jake Shields. He fought Frank Trigg. I mean, this guy's career. Oh, yeah. He was in the UFC before Strikeforce because he went to the UFC and then Strikeforce and then back to the UFC. See, I was right the first time. He fought so many monsters. He fought Nick Diaz. Early in the UFC, he fought Nick Diaz and then fought him again. When was that fight? That was like, what, a year ago? 2 years ago? Yeah, 2 years ago. I mean, what a legendary career. And how many Fight of the Nights has this guy had? This guy's had so many Fight of the Nights. Yeah, he had Fight of the Night against Carlos Condit, Rory McDonald, Matt Brown, Johnny Hendricks, Brian Barberina. Like, this dude. I think, honestly, if I were to pick one person that was, like, the BMF without, like, making a whole BMF fight like they're about to do, I think it'd be Robbie Lawler. Like, this guy is such a freaking legend. And he just got inducted into the Hall of Fame, I believe. If he wasn't already. I didn't see who all they inducted. I know Jose Aldo got inducted to the Hall of Fame. I didn't see everybody else that did. But yeah. But this is a guy, like, the thing people don't understand about Robbie Lawler is it wasn't just his UFC career that was impressive. It was also, like, Strikeforce and Pride and all the different things he did in his career. I mean, he had 47 pro MMA fights. A lot of them were in the UFC, but even the ones that weren't, like, this was just a different time. Like, this was a different time of MMA when he kind of came on the scene. And it was such a beautiful era of MMA. I wish I could have lived through that just to see, like, you know, the Matt Hughes era and the GSP era and the Diaz brothers, like, when they were coming up. Like, oh my God, like, what a beautiful time for MMA. Like, insane. But yeah, he fought once in Pride. He fought in Strikeforce. He fought in UFC, early UFC. Like, his debut was UFC 37 in May of 2002. Like, that is so long ago. That's 21 years ago, guys. Like, I don't know. I mean, I think Andrei Arlovsky's been in the UFC over 20 years. There's a few others, but that's a long time. And I know he wasn't in the UFC, like, the whole time, but he might as well have been because he was fighting guys in Strikeforce that were in the UFC as well. So it's like, yeah, I don't know. It's hard not to have a ton of respect for Robbie Lawler. He's had an incredible career. And even, like, I know he hasn't won a ton of fights, you know, the last 5 years or so, but look at who he's fought. He's been fighting guys that fought for titles. So it's, like, kind of hard, or guys that have won titles. And he himself has won and defended the welterweight title. So it's like, yeah. All right, I'm done ranting about Robbie Lawler, but I just felt like I had to take a second and show my respect to him because he's done a lot for the sport. He's made a huge impact on a lot of fighters, and just, yeah, what a legend. Anyways, going to the main card. Opening the main card. I was so excited for this fight, guys. I was so excited. Not because I thought it was going to be a super competitive fight, because I kind of had a feeling that it wouldn't be. But you never know. It's MMA. Bo Nickal fought Val Woodburn. So this was Val Woodburn's UFC debut. Leading up to this, he was 7-0. But Bo Nickal, yeah. I mean, it's really... So my first prediction for this fight was submission. I thought Bo Nickal, maybe he'll get hit with a couple nice punches with this guy, and then he'll ultimately take to the ground and submit him. That's what I thought was going to happen. I didn't think he was ever going to be in any danger, but I at least thought Val was going to like throw something at him. Did he even land any strikes in that fight? I'm going to check. Oh, it doesn't say. Of course. I really would like to know what the strike counts were on that, because I didn't see him really land anything on Bo. I mean, it was a 38-second fight, so Bo ended up, basically knocking him out. I mean, I think it was technically a TKO, but I don't know. Whatever. I thought could have been a knockout, could have been a TKO, whatever you want to call it. The guy was done. Like, he was done. And once he got hit by Bo, he was done. So, yeah. I don't know. What's next for Bo? Because I'm kind of torn with this one, because my original prediction was, okay, Bo's going to sub him in the first round, maybe get hit with, like I said, maybe get hit with a couple punches, and then he'll sub him pretty quick. I thought maybe after a minute or two. But he didn't even have to wrestle this guy. He didn't have to... I don't know. But then, like, literally, like, the day before the fights, I was talking to my friend. I was talking about this fight. And I'm like, I don't know if Bo is going to submit this guy. I'm like, I think he's going to TKO him. I just had a feeling. But I thought it was going to be like a ground and pound thing. I thought he was going to take him down and throw some nice elbows, throw some hammer fists, and TKO. That's what I thought. Because it's like, you're not going to get up once Bo has you on the ground. But I was thinking that he would do that rather than a submission, just because I know, just from looking at this guy, Val, he looks like he might be kind of hard to submit. He's got like a really like short neck. And not that he's like a grappling specialist or anything, because he's really not. He's a striker, which is why it's even more insane that Bo knocked him out. But I was thinking that he might be a little tougher to submit. So that's why I was thinking, okay, maybe Bo will just try to ground and pound. But he didn't even have to do that. He didn't have to take him down. It was like, he made it look so easy. And he was a minus 2,500 favorite in that fight. So that is, I believe the biggest favorite ever in UFC history. So it just makes me kind of wonder, is it time to step up Bo's competition? Because here's the thing, like, I don't think that Tresean Gore, I don't think that fight would have gone much differently after watching that, honestly. Also, Bo is gigantic for that weight class. He's huge. So I think until he gets to like top 15, top 20, I don't think he's going to have any issues with anybody. I think the only guy outside of the top 15 that could really give him some problems would either have to be like a really, really elite striker who has really good takedown defense, or somebody like Rodolfo Vieira, who has incredible jiu-jitsu, who maybe could try to submit him off his back. I think that is probably one of the worst matchups for Bo in that division, would be somebody like Rodolfo, just because of that high level jiu-jitsu that he has. I don't know, because he doesn't have great cardio compared to Bo. I think Bo probably has really good he's a wrestler. Wrestlers are known for having great cardio. I don't know. I really want to see him get tested. And a lot of people kind of might disagree with me on this, but I wouldn't be mad if Bo were to get a top 15 opponent in his next fight. I honestly wouldn't be mad about it. I know that sounds crazy because he's only 5-0. But here's what Bo has that a lot of other fighters don't have is he has that wrestling background. He has an insanely impressive wrestling background from Penn State. Like, guys, you do not understand how high level the wrestling is at Penn State. We've had guys come from Penn State, like Phil Davis was a Penn State wrestler. We've had some other ones, but not a ton. And we haven't had somebody like Bo. And we saw that Bo, he can strike too. Like, he's not just a one-trick pony. He's not just somebody who's just going to take you down and submit you. He's got power too. He's got striking. So I don't know. Also, you have to wonder, Val going into his UFC debut, having 0 UFC experience, that's a huge disadvantage. He's also a huge underdog. So going into that fight, he's like, everybody thinks I'm going to lose. It's just, yeah. And then he was supposed to fight on the Contender Series, and that was supposed to be in August. So I think, honestly, after that, I don't see him going to the Contender Series, which really sucks. Yeah, that was a huge risk for Val to take. I mean, props to him for even being brave enough to get in there with Bo, because I don't know a lot of people that are going to want to fight him after that. I think Bo is going to have a really hard time finding an opponent. So I think he's going to have to take tough fights. I think he's going to have to. I think I get Dana's point of like, well, we don't need to rush it. And normally I would agree with that. Normally, you guys know, if you've watched me before, you know I don't like them to rush a new prospect. But Bo Nickal is not your typical prospect. He's got that wrestling background, and he's honestly, I could see him running through the middleweight division, and I could see him moving up to 205. That's what I seriously think is going to happen with his career, because middleweight's not a super deep division. Not when you compare it to like lightweight, welterweight, other divisions. I think that he's going to have a hard time with people like Adesanya, like good strikers who have like really good range. I think that would probably give him some issues, but I don't think... I honestly just think he's that good. I really do. And it's hard to tell because Val is so, like, he's not a big name. He doesn't have any UFC experience. So it's like, yeah, Bo was supposed to win that fight, but we didn't expect him to knock the guy out. I don't think hardly anybody expected that. I even saw people saying that they thought Val was going to knock him out. I'm like, what are you guys talking about? I'm like, you guys are crazy. Now, did I think there was a chance Val could win the fight? Of course. It's MMA. Anything can happen in this sport. But I knew Bo would probably get it done in the first round. I think everybody kind of had a feeling that would happen. Yeah, I would like to see them step it up for Bo. I really would. And I'm going to take a look at the middleweight rankings and just see if there's anything that makes sense. I was thinking maybe somebody like Brendan Allen would be a good next fight for him. That might be a little too much of a step up, but I don't know. I think this guy's legit. I think I want to see him fight for the title within the next 2 years. That's what I think. If he keeps winning, I would like to see him fight for the title by 2025. I think that's pretty reasonable. I mean, why not? Like, why are we slowing him down? That's what I don't understand. Like, he's legit. I think he's got it. He's got that thing. He's also like super humble. He's not like one of those big trash talker type guys, which is why I don't understand a lot of the hate towards him. But looking at the rankings, number 15 is Chris Curtis. I mean, he could fight Chris Curtis. I don't love that fight. I really want to see him against another grappler. That's why I say like Brendan Allen. But also I brought up another potential fight for him. So Gerard Mearshart is fighting, what's his name? Andre Petroski. He was another Contender Series fighter. So, or no, not Contender Series, Ultimate Fighter. So Andre Petroski and GM3 are fighting. I think it's, within the next couple months at some point. I can't remember which card it's on, but they're fighting. I think the winner of that fight, maybe for Bo, for next fight, I think that would probably be a good gauge of where he's at. I don't think the Val fight really proved much to me, except for the fact that Bo has knockout power. That's really all it proved to me, is that he has knockout power, which is great. But how is he going to do against a UFC vet? Somebody like... So here's the interesting thing about that. So GM3, he's a veteran of this sport. He's been in there with tons of guys. He's been with Hamzat. You know, he thought he was going to derail the Hamzat hype train, and he didn't. I actually see a lot of similarities with Bo and Hamzat, except for I think Bo is way more professional than Hamzat. I think he's going to have a way more successful career, honestly. But as far as like the dominance factor, I think that's where I see some similarities. I think that Andre Petrosky would be a great fight for him too, because he's another wrestler. And that's really exciting. So I think, honestly, I really do like the idea of him fighting the winner of that one, depending on kind of how the fight goes. Yeah, we'll see. But either that, and then maybe the next fight, maybe he fights Brendan Allen. I don't know. I don't know why. I really want to see him fight Brendan Allen. I think it's because Brendan Allen's got such good grappling. I just really want to see him against another grappler, and there's not a ton of grapplers in that division. So, yeah, I either want to see him against Brendan Allen or like another like Dagestan or Russian like grappler type fighter. Because it's like if they just put him against a bunch of kickboxers, then it's not really... I don't know. I don't love that idea of him just fighting a bunch of boxers and kickboxers. I think that's kind of... That's probably what they're going to do, but I don't like that idea. I don't know. I'd like to see him fight some grapplers. That's what I want to see. But we'll see. I don't know. But yeah, looking at that division, I think Bo's going to have a really great run at middleweight, and then I think he's going to move up to 205. I don't know how he would do against somebody like Adesanya, though. Like, we're talking future, obviously. Like, he's not ready for Adesanya right now. Like, if anybody says Bo is ready for a title shot, like, please stop watching MMA because you're insane. He's not ready for a title shot, but I think he will be. I think give him 3-4 fights. Maybe he doesn't even need that much. It really is going to depend on who his next fight is, how he does in his next fight, and then who's next after that. After 2 more fights, I think that's when we're really going to be able to tell, is Bo a potential title contender? I don't know. Maybe he will be. He's definitely impressed everyone so far, and he's got incredible wrestling. And the thing is wrestling has been so effective in MMA that I think that's why I'm so much less hesitant to like see him against the top 15, just because I know how much easier it is for a dominant wrestler to win than it is for like a dominant kickboxer. I think in that division, they need somebody like Bo. They need a really dominant wrestler. And I think he could end up really making a good run in that division. But we'll see. I don't know. It's way too soon to tell. He's got to fight. He's at least got to fight somebody with some UFC experience, in my opinion, to really be able to see. So I think he does need to be tested next. I think the level of competition he's faced so far is way below him. I think it would be silly. I mean, I've even heard people saying that he should still fight Trayshawn Gore. No, please do not make that fight happen. Please. Nobody wants to see that fight. At least I don't. I think he would run through Trayshawn Gore, honestly. Please don't. But, maybe somebody like GM3 or Andre Petrosky. I think that's a perfectly good stepping stone for him to maybe then fight a top 15. I think that's great. So, I don't know, but I'm not a matchmaker, so I don't get to make any of these decisions. This is just my opinion, guys. So let me know in the comments, what do you think is next for Bo Nickal? Do you think he's ready for top 15, or do you think he should fight, maybe somebody that's in the top 20, top 30? Who knows? But let me know in the comments what you guys think. Let's get back into the fights. Next fight was Jalen Turner versus Dan Hooker. Oh my gosh. So this I actually thought was going to be fight of the night. I don't think it was, because I think Moreno versus Pantoja was. But I thought, until I saw the Moreno fight, I thought this was going to be fight of the night, because it was a crazy fight. And Jalen Turner, he actually did impress me in that fight. I mean, I know he lost, but it was still a competitive fight. And then when I found out that Hooker broke his wrist, I think it was in like the second round, I was like, oh my God. Like, I just couldn't believe it, because you wouldn't have been able to tell. And then I think he told Joe Rogan, like, oh yeah, I got a little scratch. Like, what a savage. What a freaking savage. But yeah, so, and even with a broken wrist, in the third round, he ended up getting 85 total strikes, 43 significant strikes, 1 knockdown. Jalen Turner got a takedown, but Dan Hooker had a submission attempt in that round. And then round 2, he also outstruck Jalen, not by much, but by a little bit. Had another submission attempt and 1 knockdown as well. So the first round, when the fight started, I thought Jalen Turner was going to win, just based on the first round. But then as the fight kind of went on, I was like, oh, I don't know. I was like, I think they might give this one to Hooker. It was a close fight. I thought it was a close fight, but I thought ultimately Hooker won. I wasn't surprised at all when they gave him the decision. I thought the judging actually was pretty good. I didn't have any complaints with the judging last night, which I normally do. I'll be honest, I normally do, but I didn't have any complaints. So that was good. Co-main event, or not co-main event, the next fight. God, there's so many good fights. Like I feel like this could have been the co-main event and I would have been happy. Robert Whittaker versus Dricus du Plessis. This is a huge fight. I mean, this is basically title eliminator. Rob, that really sucks for him, because the last fight with Adesanya was so, like, it wasn't like Adesanya totally dominated every round, and it wasn't like he knocked him out or anything like in the first fight. So, or the first fight, I guess, was a TKO, not a knockout, but whatever. I was expecting more from Rob in this fight. I thought Rob was going to win. I didn't think there was really a big chance that Dricus was going to win this fight. And here's why. Because even the fights that Dricus has won before this, he showed some definite, like, holes in his game. He showed some vulnerability. He got taken down a bunch of times by Derek Brunson. He even, I think, got taken down by Till a couple times, maybe once. And in the Till fight, one thing I noticed that his cardio was, I don't know, a little questionable. So that was a little concerning to me. And then also, yeah, in the Brunson fight, he got taken down a bunch. He was in some really vulnerable positions on the ground with Brunson. And Brunson's always a dangerous guy to fight. Like, no matter who you are, Brunson is dangerous. So, but the thing is, he still ended up winning both of those fights and finishing them. So it's like, I don't know. The problem is, I don't think you can make those kind of mistakes with somebody like Adesanya. And I don't even think you can make those kind of mistakes with Whittaker. And he didn't with Whittaker. He really didn't make any mistakes with Whittaker, which is why I'm so much more excited about him fighting for the title now. Because if you would have told me that he had a similar outcome with Whittaker that he did with Till or Brunson, I'd be like, I don't know if he should fight Adesanya. But the fact that he beat Whittaker in such an impeccable way, it makes me like, okay, maybe this guy's legit. Maybe this guy actually does have a chance against Adesanya. I don't think he's going to beat Adesanya, honestly. I think Adesanya is just a very, very difficult guy to beat for anyone in that division. I don't know. the thing is, we still don't know how is his cardio in rounds 4 and 5 because he's never seen a 4th round. Dricus is who I'm talking about. Rob actually, he's seen tons of 5-round fights, and I actually think Rob is a better 5-round fighter than 3-round fighter. I really do. I think Rob thrives in 5-round fights, and maybe that was part of the difficulty for him. Like maybe his game plan just wasn't good. I don't know. He just didn't look like himself. It was weird, and it was also weird seeing Rob in a 3-round fight because we haven't seen him in many, in a while. So I don't know. I think Dricus, the question for him is the cardio. And the reason I say that, and his cardio wasn't an issue with Rob, and he said he got like the nose thing fixed or whatever. He had a deviated septum, and I guess that was affecting his cardio because he couldn't breathe out of his nose, which makes sense. But I don't know. I'm trying to think of how he could beat Adesanya. I think his best bet would be wrestling. But Adesanya has really good takedown defense. That's the only thing I'm thinking. He has really good takedown defense. I don't know. I don't know if I'm quite sold on Dricus with Adesanya. I think he could beat probably most other guys in that division. I just don't know if Adesanya, I just don't think he's going to beat him. I don't think so. I don't want to underestimate him because I underestimated him against Rob and he completely demolished Rob. So it's like, I don't want to underestimate him again against Adesanya. I do think that he probably will have a good first round against Adesanya. I think he'll probably win the first round. But I think, here's the other thing about Adesanya. So the only time Adesanya has been finished in the UFC was in the 5th round with Pereira. So how is Dricus going to get to the 5th round and finish Adesanya? I don't know. We've seen him finish fights when he was gassed before, but I don't know. I don't see that happening. With Adesanya. I think the only way that Dricus is going to be able to win is if he gets him on the ground and ground and pounds him. I think it's the only way, but I think it's going to be really hard for him to get Adesanya to the ground. And I think it's going to be hard for him to keep Adesanya on the ground. So we saw Jan do it pretty easily, but he still wasn't really able to do much to Adesanya on the ground. He wasn't able to finish him. He wasn't able to really do a whole lot. He wasn't able to submit him. And that's a big guy. Jan is huge, and he's an entire weight class above. And keep in mind, Dricus, while he is big, don't get me wrong, he's big, but he used to fight at welterweight. But he's big in a different way than Jan is. Jan is still really athletic. Dricus has more of like a muscle-bound kind of build to him, where he's got these like huge shoulders. And anytime we've seen guys like that in the UFC, a lot of times they do struggle with cardio. Those big, like, muscly guys. So, I don't know. We haven't seen it. We haven't seen him go into the 4th round or 5th round ever. So, I just don't know how that's going to work against Adesanya. I also think that, just with what I've seen with, like, the Brunson fight and the Till fight, with some vulnerable positions that he's left himself in, I just don't think you can make those kind of mistakes with Adesanya. So I don't know. I think he has, I said this earlier, I think he has like a 30% chance of beating Adesanya. I think that's kind of where I'm at with him. I think Adesanya is going to win. I think it'll be a huge fight though. I think the trash talk is going to be insane. That was an interesting situation with the trash talk. When Izzy went in the cage, I was like, what is going on? I think Izzy was probably had a few drinks, but yeah, that was interesting for sure. Wasn't expecting that. I mean, I was expecting Izzy to talk some trash, but like, I was like, wow, okay. But yeah, I don't know. One thing I did notice though about Dricus that I really liked was when he was switching to the southpaw stance. He was throwing that jab, and that jab was hurting Rob real bad. I would like to see how that plays out against Izzy. Like, if he throws that jab from southpaw, is it going to hurt Izzy the same way it hurt Rob? I don't think so. I think it's also going to be incredibly difficult for Dricus to get inside Izzy's range. Izzy also is great at switching stances. Yeah. He's also a great counter striker. That's what a lot of people forget about Izzy. So it's like, yeah, Dricus might have power, but it's like, look at what Izzy did with Pereira. He took some big shots to set up his knockout. So I don't know. I feel like you're playing with fire with Izzy. If you're going to be aggressive with him, it's like you're going to pay for it, I think. And even in the Pereira fight, so where he did get knocked out in the 5th round, Izzy was still winning that fight on the scorecards. So that's another thing. And Pereira, I think out of anybody that's fought in that division, probably has the most power in his hands. At least right now, for people that are active. I don't see Dricus being able to really close that gap with Izzy and beat him. I don't see it happening, but we'll see. It'll be interesting. It's interesting to see a new contender. That is the good thing about it. It's a new person for Izzy to fight. Okay, moving on to the co-main event. So this was probably the fight I was most excited for, just because it's a rematch. There was a huge buildup, and they fought actually twice. One of the fights doesn't technically count on their MMA record because it was in the Ultimate Fighter, so it was an exhibition match. But technically, this is the 3rd fight for these guys. And Pantoja had won both of the fights previous to that. So it was super interesting. I thought Brandon Moreno was going to win. I think a lot of people did. And just because Brandon Moreno, he's been champ. He's been in there 5 rounds many times. He's got an incredible chin. He's super, super tough. So he's really hard to beat. He's extremely technical. His boxing is just out of this world. His jab and the way that he doubles and triples up on his jab, I think, is one of my favorite things that he does with his striking, because he's able to set up, those hooks and set up those uppercuts a lot better. But I think that, I don't know, it was a really close fight. I thought Pantoja won barely. I thought he barely won the scorecards. But I was expecting them to give it to Moreno just because he's the champ. And usually that's kind of how it works. It's like, if you want to beat the champ, you got to beat the champ. It can't be like a close fight. So that's what I was thinking. But I mean, I did agree with the decision. I will say that. But like, if you look at the strike counts, like for the whole fight, I'm not going to look at like round by round. It was super, super close. So it was 167 for Moreno and 161 for Pantoja. And it looks like Pantoja was throwing more strikes and Moreno was landing more. And I think he was landing with more power, in my opinion. That's kind of what I thought. I thought Pantoja had the better grappling, but I thought Moreno he had way better striking. But that's just my opinion. I thought Pantoja was kind of getting pieced up on the feet by Moreno. I thought Moreno was getting the better of all the stand-up, with exception of maybe like the first round. But definitely as the fight went on more, I thought Moreno's striking was getting better and better and better. Yeah, if it weren't for the grappling, then I think Moreno would have clearly won the fight. But that was probably part of Pantoja's game plan. And it was smart. Because how are you going to beat Brandon Moreno on the feet? You're probably not. He's such a technical striker. He's so good. He's so tough. And also, he broke his hand in the first round. So Moreno fought the last 4 rounds of that fight with a broken hand and was still throwing insane combinations and was still winning the stand-up. So a lot of people have asked me, like, what's next? Should they do a rematch? I think they should, and I'll get into get into that more a little bit later. But I don't know. I think they should do a rematch. I think it was just such a close fight. And I know they fought before, and I know this is technically, Pantoja's third time beating him. But he beat him from the judge's point of view. But I don't think he won the fight. Like, I think Brandon Moreno won the fight, and Pantoja won the scorecards. Because I did agree with the judges. I did agree. I thought Pantoja won 4 out of 5 rounds based on just how the scoring works. But if it was all just based on the entire fight as a whole, I would have picked Moreno. I really would have. It was a really interesting fight. But if you score round by round, I thought Pantoja edged it. But I think everybody wanted to see Moreno win. I think just because he's such a likable guy, it's hard not to love him. He seems like such a nice, genuine guy. And yeah, so. Okay, the main event. Volkanovski versus Yair Rodriguez. Volkanovski won that fight in the 3rd round. I was kind of joking, but I was like, man, it looks like Volkanovski's from Dagestan. Like, the way he looked in the first 2 rounds. His grappling was insane. Like, I'm going to see how many takedowns were there in that fight, because he did a great job wrestling in that fight. Yes, 7 takedowns in that fight. And he attempted 12. Like, he seriously looked like Khabib in that fight. It was amazing. And that was kind of what I was saying leading up to this. I'm like, he was getting the better of some of those grappling exchanges with Islam. And Islam wasn't able to do anything to him on the ground. Islam was beating him on the feet. So I think if this version of Volkanovski shows up with Islam, I think he has a better chance of winning. I still kind of lean towards Islam in that rematch, but I think it definitely makes things a lot more interesting now, just because we've seen just some more higher level grappling from him than we've seen before. And not only was his wrestling incredible, but also his ground and pound was absolutely insane. I wasn't expecting him to win like that. I was expecting him to wrestle. I was expecting him to take Yair down. I wasn't expecting him to be that dominant. But that's kind of what I was saying about Volkanovski before. It's like he has the perfect balance of trying to win a fight on the scorecards and win a fight via finish. I think does a great job at that, and he's gotten only better at that. Because let's say he didn't finish Yair. Let's say it would have gone to rounds 4 and 5. I think Volk would have still won on scorecards, even if he lost the last 2 rounds. So, yeah, I think Volk just has incredible fight IQ. He's got great wrestling. He's so well-rounded. He's like the GSP of featherweight. He's so good. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what's next for him. I think he's going to fight Islam in October. He did say he has a surgery that he needs. I don't think it's like a major surgery. And he did say that he will be ready in October to rematch Islam. So I'm going to take his word for it. I'm going to assume that's what's going to happen. I really have no desire to see him fight Topuria after watching that. Because like I said, I was expecting him to win by decision. I wasn't expecting him to finish Yair. Yair's not easy to finish. So after seeing that, I'm not really convinced that Topuria is really going to bring anything to the table that is going to change anything. I just don't think he's quite there yet. I was like super excited about a potential title fight for Topuria, but I was thinking Volkanovski versus Yair was going to be more competitive. That's what I was thinking. So now that I've seen Volkanovski essentially channel his inner Khabib against Yair, I'm like, yeah, I don't see that fight going well for Topuria after that. And Topuria was kind of talking trash, and he was getting a little cocky, I think. I don't see him beating Volkanovski. I think probably what will happen is Volkanovski will fight Islam in October in Abu Dhabi. I think most likely Islam will win that fight, but I'm not super on one side or the other. I'm kind of like still kind of in the middle on that one. I'm not leaning super towards Islam, not leaning super towards Volkanovski, but that performance definitely makes it more interesting. I think they fight in October. If Islam wins, then I think Volkanovski will go back to featherweight and fight Topuria. If Volkanovski wins, then I think Volkanovski will fight the winner of the BMF, and I think he will permanently stay at lightweight. I don't think he's going to go back to featherweight if he wins against Islam, because it's like, why? I don't know. And if he moves to lightweight, here's the only way I could see him fighting Topuria. And this is way in the future, so like take this with a grain of salt. But okay, so let's say Volkanovski fights Islam in October. Let's say he wins. And let's say he fights the winner of BMF, whatever. Let's say in the meantime, they do Max versus Topuria for an interim belt. And let's say Topuria wins. I don't know if he will. He might. But let's say he wins. Then I think they do Volkanovski while he's lightweight champ versus Topuria while he's featherweight champ. That would be insane. That would be insane, guys. It would be absolutely nuts. I hope that's what happens, because that would be great. But there's so many variables that have to play out for that to happen. But I think that would be incredible. I think that would be incredible if he had one title defense at lightweight and then went back and fought Topuria at featherweight. Oh my God. I mean, that'd be like a movie. Like, that would be so perfect of a career. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know what happens. I don't know if he's going to beat Islam, especially with it being in Abu Dhabi. I don't think a Dagestan champion has ever lost in Abu Dhabi that I know of. I don't think it's ever happened. So I definitely would favor Islam a little bit. But if let's say Volk does move back up, and let's say he rematches Islam again, I don't think Islam's going to finish him. I don't think it's going to be a one-sided fight. I think it will be very similar to the first fight, but maybe Islam mixes it up a little bit more with something else. I don't know. If they end up fighting and Volk loses, if he loses a second time, then I think he goes back and fights Topuria. I mean, he really doesn't have much to lose because Islam is so good and so dominant that even if he loses to him again, it's really not a big deal. He can go right back to featherweight and fight Topuria. I don't think it puts that Topuria fight in jeopardy whatsoever. So I think it's very smart of him to focus on the Islam rematch right now. And then after that, maybe then go back and talk about Topuria. Because we're talking October. I mean, that's not very far away. That's 3 months away. So yeah, if he wins, then I think they probably should keep him at lightweight for a little while and do a vacant title at featherweight or an interim title. I think that's what should happen. So we'll see. I mean, I hate to have the division held up again, but that's why I kind of like the idea more of a vacant title if Volk permanently moves up to lightweight, because then it's like, okay, you're the actual champion, like a Max versus Topuria type thing. It's not like another interim belt like Yair. But I also don't hate the idea of another interim belt. I don't know. It's just, I don't think Volkanovski is trying to be the best featherweight of all time. I think Volkanovski is trying to be the best fighter of all time. I really think that's what he's trying to do. And I think, and that's why I kind of get a little irritated with all the talk of like Volkanovski needs to stay longer and defend the title at featherweight. And it's like, he's defended the title numerous times. I'm not mad at him moving up to lightweight. He's so good and so much better than pretty much everybody at featherweight that I think it only makes sense. And I think that would get him closer to being the greatest of all time than staying at featherweight. Because if he stays at featherweight too long, You know, he's only got so much time. He's 34 years old. So he's only got so much time. So he's got to be smart with these decisions that he's making. So if he can make a good run in lightweight, if he can beat Islam, and then if he can fight for the BMF, which I think will actually be an easier fight for him than Islam, depending on who wins, I guess. I think Dustin Poirier is probably a little bit harder of a fight, just because he's so well-rounded. But I don't know. I don't know how he does against somebody like Gaethje or Poirier. But I think Islam is a tougher fight than the BMF. I really do. I mean, he's the champ for a reason. So, yeah, I don't know. I did really want to see Islam rematch Oliveira. But that can still happen. So the thing is, Charles Oliveira is not going to be ready in October anyways. So why not do the Islam Volk rematch then? And then maybe like February, March 2024, then do Islam versus Charles if Islam wins against Volkanovski. Or even if he doesn't, they could still do the rematch either way. But that's my thoughts on that. Yeah, Volkanovski looked like a Dagestani in there. That was insane. I've never seen him grapple like that. Like, I knew he had good wrestling, and I think his wrestling was really underrated leading up to this fight. I don't know what people were expecting from him, but I was definitely expecting him to wrestle, or at least hoping he would, because I knew that would be kind of the easiest path to victory for him. But I wasn't expecting that. So that was really exciting. But yeah, insane, incredible performance. I think Volkanovski will probably go down as one of the best fighters of all time once it's all said and done. By the end of his career, I think he will be up there. I really do. I really believe in him. And it took me a while to get on board with him because of the Max Holloway fights and the questionable decisions there. And I don't know, once he kind of, you know, beat Max Holloway the third time and clearly beat him, and then beat Brian Ortega and Korean Zombie, and then the fight with Yair. Now I'm like, okay. And seeing him against Islam too, even though he lost that fight, he did a lot better than I expected. He did a lot better than anybody else did against Islam. So, yeah, I'm a believer in Volkanovski now. I definitely am. And I think he will go down as one of the best of all time. I really do. I still think Jose Aldo is the best featherweight of all time. And it's going to be tough to beat that because he just had such a crazy title reign and was champ for so long. I think it's going to be hard for anybody to really top what Jose Aldo did in that division. But I think Volkanovski probably could be in the GOAT conversation at some point. That's what I think is more in the future for him, in my opinion, because I do think he's going to do great at lightweight. I really do. I don't know if he's going to beat Islam. I don't know if he's going to beat Poirier. I don't know. But I think he's going to do really well. And I think that is a smart move for him, in my opinion. Because, yeah, he showed us he can hang with Islam. He can. And he didn't get submitted. He wasn't really in too much danger in that fight. So, yeah, I don't know, but I've got questions from Instagram. So I'm going to go through these and then we'll be done. But yeah, I wanted to talk about those fights because, yeah, that was insane. Okay, so let's see what we've got here. Let's see what we got the first one. Breakdown Izzy versus DDP. Well, I already did that. I think Izzy will win. Like I said, DDP, he doesn't have 5-round experience. He doesn't even have 4-round experience. Yeah. He's also never fought for the title. Rob has fought for the title, though, and he just beat Rob. But MMA math doesn't work. We all know that. Also, it just didn't look like the same Rob to me that I'm used to seeing. Like the Rob that gave Izzy problems. It wasn't the same Rob. So I don't know. It's hard to judge just because I've seen his other fights. And if you look at his other fights, it's kind of like, I don't know if he has what it takes to beat Izzy. But what he did to Rob, I've never seen anybody do that to Rob. So I don't know. Okay, this one's like really small text, so I'm going to try my best to read this. Does Moreno deserve an immediate rematch? That seems to be most consensus after Saturday's outcome. But I'd rather see Pantoja defend the belt against Royval and Moreno fight Albazi in a title eliminator. No, I think Moreno 100% deserves a rematch. I don't get very excited about a Royval versus Pantoja fight as much as a Moreno rematch. That's just my opinion, but it was such a close fight that I think it's almost criminal not to give Moreno a rematch after that. And especially since he broke his hand in the first round. Yeah, I think 100% they need to do a rematch. And then if Pantoja beats him again, then I think he should defend it against somebody else like Royval. I would like to see Moreno versus Albazi, though. That's an interesting fight. I think Moreno absolutely destroys him, but that's just me. Okay, number 2 question. Should Yair Rodriguez contemplate a move to 155? He's a big featherweight. He's getting older. I'm sure those weight cuts aren't getting any easier. And with Volk possibly defending his belt against Topuria next, if victorious, he'll rematch Makhachev. It seems like it'll be 2 to 4 years, depending on how he does in follow-up matches, for him to get another title shot. Valuable time he could use to reinvent himself at another weight class where he'll be less depleted. I don't think the weight cut was an issue for Yair. Otherwise, I would agree. I think the issue for Yair is Alex Volkanovski is an absolute monster. I don't think Yair should move up to lightweight. No. I mean, who knows? He might do really well lightweight. I don't know. But not with anybody in like the top 15. No. That's a terrifying division for anybody. And it takes a long time to get to the top 15. Unless you're coming from another division like Volkanovski's doing. Gosh, this water's dripping everywhere. Anyways, yeah, no. And also, I don't think Volkanovski is going to fight Topuria next. I don't think he is. I think he's going to fight Islam in October. I don't know. I predict these things, guys. I predict these things. Islam and Volkanovski, I think that fight will be announced like within a couple months. Probably sooner. I think it'll be announced as soon as Volkanovski gets that surgery done. But I think he's fighting Islam in October. I really do. He wants that rematch bad. Dan Hooker versus Grant Dawson next. Dawson is ranked higher, but they both fought this month, and Hooker has a big enough name for him to contemplate fighting someone ranked below him. Grant Dawson versus Dan Hooker. That's a weird matchup because Grant Dawson's a wrestler, Dan Hooker's a striker, so it's kind of like a striker versus wrestler matchup. It would be interesting. I think Grant Dawson would probably be able to take him down quite a bit. But Dan Hooker does have good takedown defense. So I don't know. Dan Hooker's always a tough guy to predict. Let me look at the rankings in the division and just kind of see if there's anything else that I think might make more sense. I don't hate that fight. I definitely don't hate it. Grant is now ranked number 10. He was ranked number 15. He jumped all the way up to number 10. Dan Hooker is now number 12. I don't know if they've updated the rankings since last night, though. I don't know. I don't see any other fights that really stick out to me for Dan Hooker. Except maybe Sarukian. But that's quite a ways up for him right now. But after that with Jalen Turner, because a lot of people thought Jalen Turner was going to win. I thought Jalen Turner was going to win. Dan Hooker really surprised me in that fight. Yeah, I don't hate the Grant Dawson idea. I don't hate it. I would like to see Grant Dawson against another grappler. But I don't know. I think has Hooker fought Fiziev yet? I think that would be a great fight. Let's see. I can't remember if I know he's fought Gaethje. But I don't know if he's fought Hooker. No, he hasn't. How about Fiziev versus Hooker? What do we think about that? I don't know. I kind of like it. What about Dos Anjos? Does Dos Anjos have any fights coming up? I thought he was scheduled to fight somebody, but I don't remember. Because that would be an interesting fight for Grant Dawson, I think. I don't know. Yeah, I think Dan Hooker should fight. Yeah, maybe Fiziev or... Yeah, Grant Dawson maybe would be a good one. It's just kind of a weird matchup because their styles are so different. But those are always kind of fun to watch, though, just to see what happens. So who knows? Because he could end up, hitting Grant Dawson with some good elbows and knees and TKO him or knock him out. Or Grant Dawson can end up ragdolling him. I don't know. It'd be interesting. Definitely a big step up for Grant Dawson, though. And I know Hooker is ranked lower than him, but I think it's still a step up just because of who Grant Dawson has been fighting. And Dan Hooker has so much experience, and he has 5-round experience. He's been in main events, so I don't know. We'll see. Good questions. Do you think Mighty Mouse could beat Alexander? Ooh, good question. No, I don't think so. I think Volkanovski's too big. Because it's like, what weight class would they fight at? Would they fight at bantamweight? Because I don't think there's any way Volkanovski could make bantamweight. He's huge for bantamweight, just like in sheer size and strength. Like, he's big. He's a very solid guy. He's very strong. I mean, he, like Joe Rogan has said 10,000 times, like, he used to be over 200 pounds, whatever. Yeah, I don't see him making bantamweight, and I don't know how Mighty Mouse would do against him at featherweight. I think Mighty Mouse is a better fighter, more complete fighter at the lower weight classes like flyweight and bantamweight. I think Volkanovski is just, yeah, it's kind of hard to say because Volkanovski's so much bigger than him. He's not that much taller than Mighty Mouse, but he's just a lot bigger. So I don't know. I think there could be a chance that Mighty Mouse could come up with some kind of crafty submission or something, maybe. But yeah, I don't think he could beat Volkanovski. I really don't. I love Mighty Mouse. I think Mighty Mouse is probably one of the most complete fighters we've ever seen in MMA. Incredibly well-rounded, just like super, super technical, very similar to Volkanovski in a lot of ways. But I think Volkanovski would win just out of pure like strength and power. I think that would be the biggest thing. But they're very, very similar fighters, very similar in a lot of ways. So I think that's a great question. But yeah, I think Volkanovski would win. I really do. Thank you guys for the questions. I appreciate that. Definitely makes things more fun. But yeah, that's interesting. I never really thought about that. Because Demetrius Johnson, yeah, he's like one of the most well-rounded. Like I said, he's one of the most well-rounded fighters I've ever seen in MMA. But I think Volkanovski wins. I really do. I think Volkanovski is a lot stronger than he looks. He's really strong. I think that's probably besides his fight IQ, I think that's one of his best attributes. He's just how strong he is, and yeah, he's smart. He's really smart, and you can tell he's smart just like when he talks. Like, you can tell, like, that's an intelligent guy. And that's always what I thought about Demetrius Johnson too. I always thought, like, that's a smart guy, fighting or not. Like, that guy's sharp. And I think the same thing about Volk, and I think that's a big difference with a lot of these champions is their mindset, their intelligence, their fight IQ. That is what makes up the difference. That was always the big thing for John Jones, was his fight IQ. obviously his incredible wrestling and power and all that other stuff, but I think the fight IQ is what makes that big difference. So yeah, I don't know. But that's all I got for you guys today. Thank you for tuning in. Next week we have a women's fight. Oh, no, I did have another one. Let me find it. I had another question, but I got lost in here. Let me find it. Do you like boxing? If so, what do you think about Spence versus Crawford? I'm not gonna lie, I hardly ever watch boxing. I only watch it when there's like a big fight, just because there's so many other fights to watch. And I try to focus on MMA, but I'll watch it. I will watch it, but I'm not gonna even try to pretend I'm an expert on boxing, because I think that would just be kind of insulting to people who actually cover boxing and know about it. I don't think I'm qualified to speak on it, so I'm not going to. But I am excited to see that fight because I know it's a big fight. There's another question. There's like, why are these not showing up on the Instagram thing? This thing sucks. Anyways, yeah, there's 2 more questions that I have. What does the future of women's bantamweight division look like? So right now, who's champ at bantamweight? Oh, that's 135. So that was Amanda Nunes division. So it's vacant. Well, we have Holm versus Bueno Silva. That's Saturday. So that'll be interesting to see. And then, is that another Apex card? Oh my God, why do they keep doing these Apex? Oh, I'm sorry. I can't stand these Apex fights. It's getting to the point where it's like, what are we doing? Like, why are we not going and traveling and doing do a card in Des Moines, Iowa or something? I don't know. People will show up. They don't even have to be big names. It's because it's UFC. I think if they market it well enough that they would be able to get good attendance no matter where they do it. Or come to St. Louis. I'll go. You got 1 ticket sold right here. Anyways, let's look at the rankings at women's bantamweight, because it's kind of a mess, honestly. I mean, you've got Juliana Pena running her mouth as usual. It's just kind of funny, actually. You got Raquel Pennington's number 2, Holly Holmes number 3, Ketlin Vieira is number 4, Irene Aldana's number 5. I don't know. They should do some kind of vacant title, I think. I really don't know if Holly Holm is gonna. I mean, she's getting up there. Is she 40 yet? Let me see. And I love Holly Holm. I mean, she not only has she been champ in the UFC, but she was also a boxing champion as well, which a lot of people don't know. I don't think she gets enough respect, honestly. She's great. And she has a 6-fight contract. I don't know how far she is into that. She's probably only 1 fight into that contract right now. And she beat Yana Santos. She beat Irene Aldana, who just fought for the title. So I don't know, but she's 41. So I don't know. I just don't know. We'll see how this fight goes this weekend. If Holly Holm wins, then maybe they do Juliana Pena versus Holly Holm for the vacant title. I don't know. Or they could do Aldana versus Pena for a vacant title, since she just fought Nunes. But she really didn't do anything to Nunes. That's the only problem with that. I don't know. This division, yeah, it's... I don't know. Amanda Nunes, why did you do this to us? Why? Why did you do this to us? I don't know. I think Juliana Pena will end up fighting somebody for the vacant title. That's what I think's the future. That's what I think. I think they need more talent in that division, honestly. I think maybe, I don't know, maybe the next Ultimate Fighter, maybe they do more women's fights. That would be great. That would be great. Because I feel like all like the drama and the trash talk works really well for women's fights. And I think that's why people like Rose and all those other fighters got so big, was because they were on the Ultimate Fighter. So I think they should do like an Ultimate Fighter, women's bantamweight, and then maybe like a, I don't know, men's middleweight or something. I don't know. But they should do something for the women's MMA in the Ultimate Fighter, I think. Because they need new talent. And yeah, I don't know. But yeah, I think Juliana Pena will fight for a vacant title at some point before the end of the year. Because I don't think Amanda Nunes is coming back, guys. I think she's done. Next one. This is the last one. And then we're done. Okay? Izzy stealing DDP's moment, acting like wannabe DMX. This was from the Drew Experience, who also covers MMA. So check out his channel, but that's hilarious. I don't even know how to respond to that. I mean, it was pretty funny. I don't even know how to process the Izzy and Dreykus face off. It was weird. It was weird. I don't know. It was a little cringe. But I mean, yeah, I don't know. I think it was a little weird to me only because Izzy is the champ. That's why I think it was weird to me. Because Dreykus, let's say it was the other way around. Let's say Dreykus was in the crowd and Izzy won the fight and Dreykus came in the octagon. Then I don't think that would have been as weird. I think it was weird because Izzy's the champ. So it's like, why are you... I also think they're trying to do more of this WWE stuff, and I don't hate it. Because I think it's bringing attention to this fight, and it's building up this fight where it's like, okay, Izzy, the odds for Izzy to win this fight are probably pretty high. I would imagine he's going to be a huge favorite against Duplessis. At least I would hope so. I mean, it's Adesanya. Like, I don't think people understand how good Adesanya is, but because he's so cringy sometimes. But I like Adesanya. I think he's just such a big star, and what he's done at middleweight is absolutely insane. It's absolutely insane what he's done at middleweight. So I don't know. I think it was very cringy. I think it was a little weird. But I think those little moments are kind of necessary to hype up fights sometimes. And I think the trash talk between them is going to get really personal. I think it's going to be I think it'll probably be really controversial too. But I don't know. I think there's definitely bad blood there. I think it was a little WWE-esque of a moment. I thought it was weird because he's the champ walking in there. But I don't know. I don't hate it. I thought it was weird, but I don't hate it. Yeah. I'm glad Izzy was there, though. I'm glad Izzy was there watching the fight. I think that's important. I think that's the most important part of it. But yeah, it was a little much. Yeah, that's all I'm going to say. But thank you guys for all the great questions. I appreciate it. It definitely makes it more fun when you guys give me topics and questions for the show. Because, I mean, you guys got to understand, I'm sitting here talking to a camera by myself. So, like, it really does help me when you guys kind of... Even if you argue with me, that's better than nothing. I'd rather you argue with me, like try to argue with me and make it more fun than to not say anything at all, because it makes it way more fun when I have like interaction from the listeners. So thank you for participating. I appreciate you guys. But anyways, I'm gonna wrap this up now finally. But thank you so much for tuning in. I don't know So this Saturday, I do have a wedding that I'm in. So Friday, Saturday, I'm going to be pretty busy. I'm going to be busy all day Saturday. I'm not going to be able to watch the fight Saturday night. So sorry, Holly Holm. If I have time to watch it on Sunday morning, then I might cover it. I don't know. It's just going to depend on what all happens. So I'll keep you posted. If there's ever going to be a week that I take off, it'll be this weekend. So there might not be an episode this weekend. There might be, I don't know. If enough people ask me to do it, I might do it anyways. But I also just like have so much going on that it might just be impossible for me to cover it. So I might not cover any fights this weekend, but I will be back the weekend of the 22nd. So stay tuned for that. If I'm able to, or if I'm not able to cover this weekend, just know it'll only be 1 week and then I'll be back. I've gone 8 weeks in a row, guys, so give me a break. But anyways, thank you guys so much. Tune in next week if I do an episode. If not, tune in the week after. I appreciate your guys' support. I appreciate you, chiming in, asking me questions, throwing me some topics. That makes it so much fun. So thank you so much, and I will see you next time. Bye.